Welcome back to Face and Us.
All right. Do you hear me now?
Got it. All right. Thank
Good
you
morning.
so much. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you.
I forgot. Do you want to share your screen to show anything, or
No,
are we just going to
no.
be talking? All
We are
right.
going
So
to be talking,
I'll
of course.
share my screen, and I have WTI up here. So we had since you and I talked, it was pre-COVID, and
Yep.
in fact, you made a very good call pre-COVID when there was that little, well, it wasn't little, after the U.S. took out the Iranian commander. You actually tweeted that it would not really escalate into anything. Great call, because after the Iranians retaliated on our base, on the U.S. base in Iraq, that was it. So thanks for bringing some sanity to the markets. And why did you know? How did you know that it would not escalate? And it would just be a one-off for both countries?
Well, there is. I mean, it's really kind of a basic or common sense issue here that no one has any interest in escalation. What is the interest of Iran in escalating this? Their navy can be wiped out in 2 hours. Trump administration already declared so many times that they're not going to go for war. So why they have to go for escalation?
Got it.
At the same time, the Hormuz Strait basically is extremely important for Iran, because that's how they get shipments out and shipments in. I think this is really worth mentioning here, that if you recall months ago when the 4 tankers were hit in Fujairah, and people said there were 4 oil tankers that been hit in Fujairah, and they accused the Iranians or the Iranian operatives of doing that. That's when the Prime Minister of Japan was visiting Iran. And one of the ironies is the media kept saying that there are 4 oil tankers. And the irony is one of them was an oil tanker, but it was a vegetable oil.
Oh, all right.
Iran imported that vegetable oil from Brazil. And it was, so they took the oil out to another tanker. They took the tanker, they fixed it in Dubai, then they put back the oil in it 2 months later, and it sailed back to Iran and delivered the oil. What that means is Iran, to survive, they need the area to be stable so they can get the food and the oil and olive oil or whatever things they need to eat.
Yes. Okay. So, the fear that the market has had for such a long time, the threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz would be suicide for Iran. Their country would starve to death. Who are they selling their oil to now with all the sanctions in place?
Well, they are selling their oil to various places. Some of it we know,
China.
Some of it is not clear. Of course, China is one of them.
Yeah.
But there is more sophistication in smuggling that oil. Of course, some people get offended when we say smuggling, because they say Iran had the right as sovereign nation to export its oil anyway. So when we say smuggling, I mean, they get offended by that. But they perfected the game with the help of the Chinese and others in the region. And they perfected their game in exporting their oil to neighboring countries. So this game been going on for a very long time, and the U.S. and others do not have the, or they don't want to kind of investigate these things, because it is very costly, and at the same time it will offend some allies once these things are discovered.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, because I was shocked that when we had that huge liquidation break across the board and COVID panic, I never thought I'd see a commodity trading at a negative price. Like we had oil go to minus $38. What were you thinking when that was going on?
That was shocking on all fronts. I never expected that oil prices could go to negative. Now, we always, when we teach our students in Economics 101, we always tell them when we solve the equations, if you get a negative price, you've done something wrong. And therefore, you have to go and redo your work because the price has always to be positive. That's what we taught our students. But in reality, we are ending up with negative prices. We've seen it in natural gas, we've seen it in electricity, and we've seen it in oil now. But what is clear is that no actual producer was willing to sell their oil at negative price. What we've seen basically are traders who really sold, and the amount was very small anyway, but it was traders who were willing to sell because they couldn't find storage. But actual producers, we couldn't find a single producer to sell for negative price. Of course, before that, probably 2 weeks earlier, we've seen one company selling a very heavy oil at a negative price, but that's kind of very minor, and it was a special circumstance. But we did not see a single producer selling oil at negative price.
Therefore, the instant recovery the day after the expiration of the futures contract. So it was people that didn't want to even get involved with the mess of taking delivery, which has expenses in itself, even before you store it, right? So we've had this nice recovery here, and we're last week some pretty good selling came in around the $42 mark on WTI. I have the chart up here, the weekly chart up here, right here in us. If you were a gambling man, what would be your projection for prices from this area that we're trading in, right around the $39 level here? What are your ranges that you're expecting, and what would be the catalyst for either a pullback in oil to, say, 25, $30, or are we on our way up to 50?
Okay. We are on a solid floor right now. So in a sense, in terms of going down, we are going to see just regular market fluctuations, but kind of a major dip, there is no story to support that. There are no fundamentals to support that. But let me make a case here, because I think this case is a bullish case, but it has a lot of support. If you look at the current market versus what happened in 2017, right now we have about 180 million barrels in excess oil in storage. That's a surplus. In a sense, above the market equilibrium needs a certain amount. We are above that amount by about 180 million barrels. And the question is, can the Saudis and their allies in OPEC Plus lower inventories to a meaningful level so we can see prices going up? If you look at 2017, the Saudis and their allies were able to reduce inventories in OECD by about 152 million barrels in 10 months. So most of the 180...
How did they do that?
Well, they cut production. No, they cut production severely, and then they targeted the US. If you go back to the data, you see that the Saudis reduced their exports to the US substantially, even to their own refinery. In a sense, they starved the US in a way where the inventories declined by 120 million barrels. So out of the 152 in OECD, 120 was in the United States. And they were able to reduce it. The only problem we ended up with is the fiasco that President Trump caused with imposing sanctions on Iran and asking the Saudis to increase production and then give exemptions to 8 countries. And then prices collapsed and storage built again. But we do have a precedent to show that OPEC Plus members can reduce the surplus 180 in a reasonable period of time. And here is where the beauty of this. If you go back to 2017 and compare it with now, in 2017, Libya increased its production by 3-fold and was producing about 1 million. Now it's producing almost nothing. If you look at Venezuela, Venezuela right now is producing half of what it was producing in 2017. Look at shale. Shale added 1.2 million barrels a day in 2017. Now we are talking about negative growth, and probably that negative growth, in my view, it will be probably about 1.8. Some people think it's way larger than that. If you look at Iraq, for example, Iraq is producing way lower than expected. So there is more help for OPEC Plus to balance the market today than in 2017. The only problem is in 2017, oil demand was growing by about 1.4 million barrels a day.
Right.
Now
so
it's
the tug of war.
Correct. We have this problem because of COVID-19, and it is about demand. Demand is growing anyway, even with a recession. There is a general mistake out there that any recession, we are in a recession now, but some people think that this recession impact is above COVID-19 impact, and that's not correct. If we have a recession with open economy, is way, way better for oil demand than a lockdown economy.
Yeah, because people are driving their cars. In fact, it's
Correct.
a preferred way of travel in this COVID environment.
Correct. And we have enough evidence now from around the world, including the United States, to show that people are abandoning public transportation in favor of private transportation.
Right.
Which means that gasoline demand is going to go up. The problem we have is jet fuel, because flight.
No demand, yeah.
Not correct. So what is the balance is going to be? That's what we need to know. What is the balance of the increasing gasoline versus the decline in jet fuel? We already seen several airlines announcing that they are going to start full flights this week. So we will see what is the impact of that probably in about 10 days, returning to full flights, whether that's going to increase jet fuel demand or not. But I am very optimistic on oil. I am bullish on oil regardless. This idea that we are going to hit 100 and 150 and 190 is far-fetched at this stage. Although I am very bullish on 21 and 22, but the reason why we are not going to reach 100, and this is part of an article I'm writing right now, is that when the United States established the strategic petroleum reserves and start filling it up in 1977, it came with several regulations. So the SPR is well regulated in the United States in a way where it cannot be used to manipulate prices. It has to be used in emergency. I know some people might laugh at this because politicians have their own way of manipulating the SPR to play with prices, and I agree with them. But generally speaking, it is well regulated and it will be used only in case of emergency. The problem is we have other countries who are not part of the International Energy Agency. They are not part of OECD. They are building strategic petroleum reserves with no regulations. What that means is they are buying oil at $10, $20, $30 oil. And
strictly to stockpile.
Correct. And once oil hit 80, they will start selling it. So the idea of reaching 100 right now is really far-fetched because those guys are going to sell, they are able to sell 1 to 2 million barrels a day, probably for 60 days straight. And that's going to not crash prices, but it's going to at least prevent prices from going to 100.
Okay, very interesting point. So should we have a correction back to say the $30, $25 range, that would be a steal for you? That'd be an excellent level. Do you have any levels? Would you just, like a lot of people that are in the gold business and us, they say, don't wait to buy gold and wait. They're not price sensitive. You feel the same way about oil right here at about 39 bucks?
I think it's still a steal at this stage. I mean,
Okay.
especially for if we look at it from, my background is in private equity. So from a private equity point of view, at this stage, this is a great time for private equity to go back. Of course, for those who have the money,
Mm-hmm.
to go back and invest. Everything is dirt cheap. Companies are starved. We already seen the announcement of Chesapeake yesterday. It just indicates that companies are starved for cash, and there will be a lot of assets available, good assets basically, available for sale, whether it's natural gas or oil.
Okay. I want to get a little esoteric with you because we do have an election coming up here. Maybe this could be a topic for another article you'll be writing down the road. Our relationship with Saudi Arabia and the status of the petrocurrency with Saudi Arabia and the possibility that President Trump is not reelected, who maintained this relationship with Saudi Arabia through some tough things, including, the assassination of that reporter, the war that was going on in Yemen. And should the Democrats win, they may not be as tolerant of that type of behavior. And for many years, people have written that either through unrest in Saudi Arabia, through the masses that aren't happy with being ruled the way they are, or just a geopolitical move by the kingdom, that the reserve petrocurrency status, that Saudi Arabia may start accepting payments in something else, especially if President Trump is not reelected. What do you think?
All right, this really needs a lot of time to explain. So let me try to make it short.
Go ahead.
Generally speaking, what we know about the Saudis historically is that they've been extremely flexible, and they worked with Democrats and they worked with Republicans.
Yes.
So we have a long history of that. Now, a relationship could be strained like with the Obama administration. But with the Obama administration, most of the problems between the Obama administration and the Saudis is really related to the change in government in Egypt and the support of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. I think that was really what really made the Saudis angry at that time, and they are still angry at Obama until today. Aside from that, everything is workable. I heard, for example, just before the election, that there was a team that landed in Dallas and met with George W. Bush to kind of mediate between them and Hillary Clinton, because everyone was expecting Hillary Clinton to win. So they are very flexible. And I think there will be some issues between Democrats and Saudis. I think Democrats will do a big mistake if they pick up like individual issues and personal issues and start focusing on them instead of focusing on a major policy issue. And when we talk about major policy issue, we are talking about major policy issues for the whole Middle East, not only for one country, because the issues are all connected. So my hope basically is that Democrats will be as flexible as the Saudis in dealing with the issues. But to go back to one point,
stability in the kingdom, you still have confidence in that?
Stability in the kingdom. Let me tell you one piece of information that everyone should know. If you look at the last 100 years, and let's focus on the last 50, that's closer and better. You see that all the turmoil and all the changes that happened in the oil producing countries happened when oil prices were very high. Nothing happened when oil prices were very low. Nothing. Even the Shah, when he was removed when oil prices were very high.
It's interesting.
Well, yes, but that's what the data tells us. Now, there are a couple of explanations for that. And here I am just guessing as a researcher. There is no kind of inside info or anything on this. One issue will be is whatever the other party is going to win big, because there is a lot of gold and money and everything else. You don't want to inherit a collapsed economy. You don't want to inherit a country that's badly in debt and fight for it.
So then why would anyone ever want to be president of the United States of America?
Well, the United States of America is still a very rich country. I mean,
well, you said, you don't want to inherit a kingdom in debt.
I mean,
well, I mean, we've never been in more debt.
Yes, but still, the United States is still a very rich country. If you look just at the federal government ownership of land and resources alone, I mean, it's unmatched.
All right. I was just, throwing out a little.
So in terms of stability, even we've seen this. Yes. But in terms of stability, let me go back in history. And if you go back, you will see articles published in major US and European newspapers and magazines talking about succession in Saudi Arabia and how we are going to end up with a total chaos. Those articles been repeated since the 70s until today, and we did not see that chaos until today.
Right.
We have a few kings died and they've been replaced by another king, and we did not see the chaos that those articles predicted.
Yeah. So we haven't seen a pandemic in 100 years either.
That's a good point, because the idea here is that never say never.
Yeah.
But as a researcher, you cannot focus on the extremes. Okay.
All right. So you have any feeling on natural gas? A lot of people are looking at, historically cheap levels there as well. And, we're heading into the summer, which, no one's thinking about heating their homes right now. You have a view on nat gas?
Yes, basically, ironically, I just finished an article on natural gas in the Mediterranean. In the United States, here is the issue. The issue is, as more wells come back online with higher oil prices, we are going to have more associated gas. Whether you have rigs drilling for gas or not, it doesn't matter. As long as you have oil wells coming back online, we will have associated gas. The problem we have is this, that there is no bullish story for gas. I'm talking about like very bullish story. Yes, will we go above today's low prices? Yes. But there is a cap on that. And here is why we have a cap on that. Assume that oil prices go to 350, which is a dream for many, and many people will love that.
Yes.
But if we go to that level, we are going to see the power sector unwinding the switching, because they already switched to from coal to natural gas based on economics, not based on any regulations. And if we go to 350 to 380, we are going to see some switching. We go to 4, we are going to see massive switching. We might see up to 6-7 BCF a day of switching. That's 6 BCF or 7 BCF unwanted gas. That will prevent prices from going any higher. But suppose for some reason they continue to go high. Alberta has at least 2 BCF a day to dump on the US right now. And as you know, the infrastructure is already there. And even if natural gas prices keep going up, if we go higher than that, the LNG that is not contracted will not be sold. And therefore, there will be another amount that will be dumped on the market. So for the next few years, there is no very bullish story for gas. Now, will we hit $5 and $6 like 1 or 2 days because of a spike, because of problems somewhere? Yes, because of Cold winter, yes, for a couple of days, but to see a major increase in prices throughout the strip, it's very hard to see it in the coming years for the reasons I advanced. They are all on the demand side. So in a sense, by depending more and more on gas, we are killing it.
Okay, yeah, our country is just like you said, stockpiling oil, doing the same with nat gas at these levels, just in case.
I mean, we already have a big storage of gas, but we reach a point in natural gas where we can literally supply it on demand, and therefore the increase in storage became irrelevant because people thought we can get to 7 and 8 and 9 TCF of storage. We did not.
Yes.
We
Okay.
did not even build additional storage because we can supply it on demand. And we did not reach that point in oil, but we were almost going to reach that point. So the idea of supplying it on demand prevented building storage above what we had historically.
Okay. Well, I want to really thank you for coming in and giving us your constructive outlook on oil here in us. Are you interested in having people follow you or get a hold of you?
Yes,
Just curious.
I multitask on Twitter all the time. So whatever I'm doing, I keep an eye on Twitter. My Twitter handle is my first name and last name, Anas Alhajji, at Anas Alhajji. I have a website with the same name,
Okay, I'm
Anas
putting it up here.
Alhajji. And I advise a website. It's a specialized website in energy called Attaqa, ATTAQA.net. It is in Arabic, but it had the capability to switch to several languages. So they can switch the language from the top of the page, or on smartphone, they can switch it from the menu. There are a lot of stories, energy stories and commentaries, etc., on that website too.
Well, I appreciate it, and now people will see this and your site, and if they want to know about fundamentals in energy, you're a great resource in us, and I appreciate
Thank
you
you. And
coming.
on that webpage you just posted, basically that chart, I left it there, although it's outdated, on purpose, just to show the view of a global demand before COVID. Because I think we are so busy with COVID, we forgot what was going on before it. So I left that chart on purpose so people can see what was the outlook for it before it.
Okay. Well, I wanted to thank you again, Anas. Good luck in the markets, and thank you for informing people and being a resource in what can be, definitely a volatile market, but a real good trending market once you catch one. So, again, have a great summer trading season if you're trading, and we'll talk in the fall, see what's going on around election time. What do you think?
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Pleasure.
everybody. All right, so that's a wrap. I'll be gone for the rest of the week. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings, and I leave you in very competent hands with the ForexAnalytix team, and look forward to seeing everyone next week. Adios. Thanks again, Anas.